discussion will be pertaining to, will be involving us 5 here, along with Superintendent Norton. And Ms. Wagner, if she's gonna, Ms. Wagner's also gonna be online, presenting and discussing because of an illness. She's not able to be here. So with that, we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome everybody here tonight. The workshop is intended for us just as a board to talk about things. We do not make decisions during the workshop period. We'll go into regular sessions sometime after 6 o'clock or afterwards this evening. That's what any decision will be made during that time period. And they were having a little problem with the streaming to the YouTube channel, and that's up and running according to Lisa. So with our meeting agenda and the workshop is submitted already. We have a finance update, building start and stop times, influx update, discussion items, other topics, and adjournment for the workshop. And then our regular school board meeting will start after 6 o'clock or after, like I stated. So with that, we'll start with the finance update. Spiritus, how are you?
Good, how are you? Good evening, everyone. All right. Share my reports here into the meeting. All right, so we have finance reports tonight as of February 28th. So the first item I have for you is the treasurer's report. So you can see that the bank statements all balance out. And then on the second page is a schedule of our investments. As I mentioned last meeting, we no longer have the savings account there with the Bank of China. We moved that about the week of March 20th. It's now into CDs, so at the end of March, you won't see that anymore. Our advisor was advising us to move out of that just in case tensions with China escalated. So we've moved it into CDs that have a similar yield. And again, we did not have and currently do not have any funds in the banks that have collapsed. Are there any questions on the treasurer's report? All right, moving along, I have the enrollment here as of the week before spring break, March 21st. We were serving in-house 2,315 students, adding our tuition out students into that. Our variance versus budget is now a negative 3.46. Weighted pupil units. We are still very close to our budget, but now we'll more than likely experience a loss of about $30,000, $35,000
Through February.
Through February. We continue each month, as you can see, we continue to lose a handful of students, mostly at the secondary level.
Any questions on the
Any questions?
enrollment report?
No. All right.
Okay.
Moving along to the budget report, again, as of February 28th. In our general fund, we had received $17,776,287, or 47.2% of our revised budget, compared to 45.4 and 47.9. So we're sitting comfortably between those years. So I would say we're tracking on budget with revenue collection. For expenditures, we've expended $21,016,045, or 55.14% of our revised budget, compared to 54.8 and 55.8. So again, we're sitting comfortably between those two percentages, tracking on our budget.
Why don't you state the years when you talk about those
Oh,
numbers?
yes. we're comparing back to February 28th of 2022 and February 28th of 2021 as compared to how we ended the year to see if we're spending in the same manner.
Thank you.
If you go to page 2 there, you will see our other funds, including food service and community education. Again, food service is tracking a little behind in revenue collection, but we went back to the National School Lunch Program this year, which we were not on for fiscal years 21 and 22. We were on the we were on the summer food program, which has a different reimbursement rate. And we also need to collect funds from parents this year. We are working to collect funds from parents, but we do have a number of negative balances that if are not collected, we will have to enact the unpaid meals policy we passed a couple months ago.
And when does the legislature and governor sign that new legislation on the lunch program and when does that start?
That is for next school year.
Starting what day though? July 1st?
It'll start, with the first day of school next fall.
Not summer.
Not summer. We will still run the summer food program, which is free to all for the qualifying sites. We'll still have to qualify by each site's poverty rating as we had pre-COVID. And then starting with the first day of school next year will be the free meals for all.
Thank you.
It does not, I just want to say on camera here, it does not include a la carte. So if students are buying a la carte, just like during the pandemic, they have to have funds in their account. Any questions on the budget report? All right. Also in my report was a listing of the COVID grants and the money we have drawn out of those grants to date. I try to make draws quarterly, so there has been no update since the last meeting. As we'll talk in the regular session, when we get to the budget reductions, there has been some movement in the House and Senate on finance. Is good news, but I don't know if we want to discuss it here, if you'd rather discuss it with the budget reductions and projections in the regular session.
Are they projections in the House and Senate? Nothing's been passed yet.
Nothing's been passed. It is just budget targets at this point, and they'll have to come to a consensus.
I just assume, do we know more? Get too excited about something that isn't
Right,
passed.
correct.
What's the rest of you want to do? Any conversation? I mean, we can talk about something that we hope happens.
We hope happens, yep.
I'd rather be more when we have something more concrete.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
And if there's no other questions, that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jacqueline.
Thank you.
Building and start and stop times, Mr. Norman?
It's one of the things that the board had asked that we talk about. There are people within the community that have asked us to take a look at that. It's brought to the attention of the board. I've done a little bit of background. I've talked a little bit also with the busing company to see if there were any logistical implications as far as getting the kids to school, if we were to change that. So it was really just a conversation to see if we wanted to entertain at this particular point to get ahead of it, as opposed to sometime in July or August to look at it, to get ahead of it now as far as the discussion. We could begin to discuss it now, and if there was a possibility to be able to implement it, it wouldn't even have to be this year. But it was just sort of put it out there. Is it a topic of conversation that the board would like to entertain? That's kind of where we are right now. The past history from my perspective basically was that there was several, last year, it was, yes, this is where we're gonna go, this is where we'll go. There was a presentation made as far as the impact that it had on the high school, and the impact that it had on the community and the kids within the community. All of that was discussed last year. You want to entertain that again this year, basically, is my,
Yes,
let's take that forward.
I guess I just have a question. I know that when we've had this discussion before, community members, staff, kids have all very loudly expressed the desire to have schools start closer together, the times closer together, between 8 and 8:30. In order to do that, we would need to change our busing system, correct?
By system, there's many different ways that you would express system. So one of the things that I asked, was if we did, let's say that right now the elementary, for the public safety, the elementary goes first, and then the high school comes after that. If it was flipped with the high school going first, would that mean that there's a possibility that they would be closer together? And the answer to that is yes. So that's one solution, basically, if they want them closer together, because there's fewer kids that rise to high school and middle school, so that run is much shorter than the other. Not much, but it is shorter. The timing would have to be put out. We wouldn't know the exact amount of time that it would shorten it between, but right now, it wouldn't need to be an hour, because the high school kids drive to school. So that would be one way to be able to shorten it. The other way, if you're saying single tier versus double tier, basically, that would shorten it. That the cost comes into that. Flipping the start times for the high school to the beginning and the elementary kids is at no cost. We would use the same runs.
So is that something we should be thinking about?
It's kind of why it's on the table right now, Director, is that we were exploring that, it was to give it, how does it work? What does it do?
Right.
How does it impact the high school? How does it impact 7th hour within the high school? How does it impact care at home? You could say, well, I need my high school kid at home to take care of my elementary students, so if he leaves, who's gonna take care of him? Then the flip side of that is, who takes care of them when they get home early? So either side of that equation, you're always gonna have a high school kid who's not gonna be with a little one, either in the morning or in the afternoon. So yes, it's being entertained simply because there was interest in having that conversation from the community, because now that you've lived with it for a year, with it being flipped like this, there are drawbacks to it, pretty significant drawbacks to it.
Yes, Ms. Rowe.
Just for historical sake, Teresa, I don't know how long, I know you came to so many meetings last year, and I don't know, I can't remember which ones you were at, but I think our community loud and clear would love to do a one-tier system.
Right.
I think we all would love to do that, quite honestly. But we ran into two problems last year when we made the decision. One is it's an extremely large additional cost, which I think maybe we could figure out a way to do that if, financially. But the other issue was the amount of drivers that we need. And there were other schools that were running into the problem of, okay, we'll bite the bullet and take that extra cost and run a one-tier system. But then if you have bus drivers that call in sick, or we don't have enough substitute bus drivers or whatever, then there are kids that are stuck at home with no way to get to school.
Right.
And that has been happening across the country, is kids are all ready to go to school and then no bus comes because there's no drivers. And Terry had talked last year with us extensively about that concern. And so we would much rather have a two-tier system where we know we've got enough bus drivers that can go and get our students than to all of a sudden at, a half an hour before they're supposed to be picked up, not have somebody there to get them. So we're between a rock and a hard place, because I really think the whole community and the board would love to see a one-tier system. We just can't provide that. It's not possible. And Terry, I don't know if you can speak to any updates on that with drivers.
Yeah, I'll come up.
Not to put you on the spot, but I know you're here for a reason.
I always
Right here.
expected it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, to give perspective on what was going on prior when we had our single tier system. When I first came in, we were averaging 9 to 11 drivers short every day. At that point, I was able to fill these spots from our locations in the Twin Cities. They had sent drivers to me on a daily basis. Since that time, that has collapsed and fallen apart. Some of my company's routes in the cities don't get filled. It's not just with my company, it's with companies and district provided services across the country. When we went down to the two-tier system, I increased some drivers to get, and I have been maintaining. We haven't had any service impacts in the Red Wing district, since we've gone to a two-tier system. And, it's the climate because I agree with you guys. I'd love to do a single tier. I'm a businessman. It makes me more money. But it's just, the ability to actually do it. And then along with that, it would be a new contract negotiation, which would be coming up soon anyway. So this would probably be a moot point, but it is a substantial cost. The numbers back when it was last discussed was right around 700,000 a year. And I would expect that those costs would significantly increase with the climate of the economy right now. I can't speak to, what it would look like. That's above my pay grade, but the main thing is fulfilling the routes. And I would really hate to leave kids at home.
How many routes does a single tier take versus a two tier?
See, and that's something else I've expanded now with vans, which don't require a CDL license. I've taken over a lot of the van work. Right now, I'm trying to figure out, it's right around 34 routes that we do on a double tier. We probably need somewhere around 40 in order to do it.
This isn't fair because I did tell you ahead of time, this fall I would see buses come out of the high school, the 77 passenger buses, the big ones. When you about count the kids on one to two hands, sitting in the bus.
Yeah, a lot of that has to do with the logistics of Red Wing. Red Wing is a very challenging logistical town. Instead of having an encompassing area that we can take in, we are pretty much a pencil, from one end to the other, and keeping within the time limits, the kind of constraints that we need to do. That's where you can see a lot of that, because the in-town buses are pretty packed, but yeah, there are some of those country routes that have very few kids, but they take longer than what the city takes.
So I understand that part, but it still is tough to watch.
Oh, yeah,
A
no,
dozen kids on a 70-some passenger bus.
yes.
And you're wondering.
Yeah, no, and also we go by, when it comes to the high school, something that we did do this year was the opting in for juniors and seniors. That worked pretty well, but there are still a lot of kids who, even though that bus might have 7 kids, we might have 25 that are actually registered to that bus or they have an opt out. So, and we have to keep those spaces for those kids.
Yes. So, yes.
So how do we find out what the times would be, or is there something we can ask for, like if we flip and do elementary
Yeah.
first?
I've talked to the routers. If a flip would pretty much have no impact on a two-tier system. So you could do the flip. And just take a little, they might have to look into, how we can narrow that down, from the high school to the elementary part.
So it's possible to narrow that gap.
Yeah, yes.
The other thing that I'm kind of concerned about is if the federal government changes the daylight saving time to, once we spring ahead, we'll leave it that way, so it'll be darker even yet in the morning.
Yeah.
And you got younger kids out there already kind of in the dark, even longer now, or even less chance of the light. So those things are, nothing's been decided on the federal level yet, but it seemed to get some traction.
Yeah.
So I think maybe this is down the road today or another time, talk about if we want to flip them around. Because Mr. Norton's right, the high school kids are at home later versus earlier, it's gonna impact them one way or the other. And the other thing is, no matter what we decide, some people aren't gonna be happy. It's just the way it is.
I'll give you the perspective from us when we were a one-tier system. The phone calls that I received many more phone calls from parents than when we've gone to a double tier because of their kindergartners being on buses with the high school and the middle school kids, and the impacts that it was having on the younger students. There's a whole nother facet to it all, so.
When we went to 1 to 2, once upon a time, I was teaching at Jefferson, and we actually had an increase in ridership at our school because they weren't on the bus with the big kids.
Ms. Rowe?
I can't remember if it was last year or 2 years ago already when we switched times. And then when we switched, we got all sorts of feedback from parents and we ended up switching back. And, you know, based on that experience, I think it's best right now to stay with where we're at. I think another switch for parents is not a good idea. I mean, we finally had 2 years in a row of some consistency. I think we need to keep that unless there's an exorbitant amount of information that tells us otherwise. Families have figured out the childcare. Families have figured out routes and where to go and who's gonna watch their kids and those sorts of things. Now, I get it. I've got 2 high school kids and they're in sports and they're never here. They're 7th hour, like almost all year long. And I get that we've got lots of teachers who are also coaches and that presents a problem. If we can somehow make the start times a little bit closer together, maybe that would help with late nights for our high schoolers that are in activities and whatnot. But honestly, I would say keep it status quo unless there's some major change with the daylight savings time. I mean, I think that is a big concern with darker mornings. It's already dark out there, but you know, we figured it out. And so I think one more change might be really difficult for our families.
And I'll talk to the routers, but I think with the historical data what we got with the last 2 years, you know, we can see if there's something we can do to, you know, to try to do that. So that's definitely something that, you know, we can look at and see what we can do.
Great.
Yeah, it was just when everything was switching so much, we just had to do what we had to do to get through it. And now that everything's kind of settled and we're where we're at, we can work on some of those things.
Well, how much time do you think you'd need for that conversation?
I don't know. That would be something with CISO. So
2 months?
yeah, it might be 2 months, what they might need, because they're starting to, you know, honestly, they're starting to work on next year already. So it should be pretty, it might, well, yeah, and then we're gonna be throwing in summer school, but that's pretty simple, but yeah, we can look at.
Only,
I'd say if you're comfortable with 2 months, I think I can speak for them. I think they'd be comfortable with 2 months too.
we'll do this in 2 months in June, first meeting in June. We'll do that. Whatever that first Monday is, we'll do a workshop again.
And to be clear, that would be to discuss just the start time.
Yeah, that's all, that's what I can commit for them
I
is.
think it's really important to set the tone for our parents right now that, no, we're not gonna make another switch. It's just maybe we can put those start
Yeah,
times closer together so our younger kids
Yeah.
don't have to be out so early.
And then also with the opting in for the juniors and seniors,
Right.
last year was the first year we did it, so maybe this year, I know CISO was talking about doing it much earlier. Like, I'm thinking it's very soon that they want to send that out so that we get our feel for it all, and then we can go from there. So it'd be great. It'd be a lot easier to do it that way, and then.
I agree with Pam about not flipping everything around, but just see if we can condense that time a little bit. Ms. Bjornson?
When you did change start times, or if we were going to consider flipping it, which we're not, but thinking down the road, if that comes up again, did we do any kind of survey ahead of making those changes? And then was the chronology of events that we did a survey and the community got feedback, set the times, there was uproar? Okay,
Yes, we certainly did, and we got student feedback as well from the
yeah,
high schoolers. We asked them to submit their,
and this is before you set the times.
correct.
And then when's our contract up?
We've got one more, we got next school year.
23, 24.
Yeah.
That might be a good time to dig into this a little more. then.
And if you guys were to make, a choice to try to do the one tier stuff, if it would be at the beginning of the school year prior the year before, it's time. When it comes to the transportation part, it's time, because they gotta run a bunch of different kind of scenarios and things like that, but.
Okay.
But just so everybody does know, size school district that you've got, 2-tier system is the norm. So,
Sure.
We're just gonna comment to the board, it sounds like there isn't any flavor to be able to pursue that at this particular time. One of the reasons that it is in front of you is because administratively, we are hearing from the inside of the buildings that it is something that should be discussed and looked at to flip it. So just a counterpoint, basically, just to make sure that you're all aware that wasn't just it didn't appear. We're hearing from parents and along the lines of, my kid is missing that 7th hour. That's a portion of it, but also just that the kids on the street, we're hearing a lot administratively from the thing.
and then, like I said, I just want you guys to know that if you did make the elementary, high school switch, that that wouldn't impact.
It
So
wouldn't get closer together, the time.
it could, but for us logistically, it makes no difference who goes first or second. I would envision it would probably condense it a little out, but I mean, we're talking 10, 15 minutes probably. So it's not a significant.
This is a bit much bigger discussion earlier in the year than in April.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And then what I'll do, Jim, is I'll talk to Cecil, I'll talk to Frank once we get an idea of what kind of study to try to tighten things up, and then let you know.
We have
Keep
you
you
down, we have you down for 9 weeks from now.
Okay.
Clock's ticking.
trying to think. That's the first
Monday after school.
Monday after. Okay.
Graduation.
Worst thing is I'll be on jury duty, so.
At least you're
Thank you
not,
for your
you're not
service.
there listening. At least the jury's not deciding your fate.
No, not yet. Anything else?
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you.
Just a quick question
Yes.
from the board is, I don't recall when we did all of our listening sessions that this was a start time for school came up as a big piece of feedback in those listening sessions for the
I didn't
superintendent.
see anything on it.
Maybe there's some other things that have come up through reflection too.
Yep.
So,
Do,
I think it's always important to get that feedback, but I mean, I feel like we've solicited it and we've heard loudly and clearly from our families that they don't want. I mean, I think some do. I mean, I think it's a legitimate concern either way who goes first to school in the mornings.
I just wanted to give voice to those who
Yes,
contacted
thank
us
you.
and said, why didn't you speak up?
Yeah.
We contacted you and you didn't say so, just lending that to the community, saying there is a counterpoint to that.
Thank you. So for those that just came in afterwards, where's the workshop? We just talk and discuss things, make no decisions. The regular school board meeting will start sometime 6 o'clock or after. Okay? So thank you all for coming out on this nice night. Now we gotta get done early because there's a basketball game I'm hearing too. If anybody wants to watch that, so. Is Martina on there? Martina, are you on the call?
I am on. I sound a
There
little
you
rough,
are.
so forgive me.
Yeah, I understand. And
Um,
we got inflection update. Miss,
we do. So,
go ahead.
just to kind of set the context, there's been a lot of flight cancellations. So Matt, who is also online with us, is still in Portland. He's taking a red eye tonight to be with all of us tomorrow, but was gracious enough to do his board presentation, which I think will be eye-opening for all of us. I've been working with Matt most of the year. Frank's been working with his counterpart, Ken. I don't know Ken's last name, so maybe Matt, you can add that in. But we've been being very strategic. We do have the one pager that I put together with our timelines of all of our checkpoints. Tomorrow, our district leadership team will be going through the first of our identity and purpose protocol, which will be replicated throughout our schools and our community to kind of move forward with the beginning of our new 5-year plan. And so without further ado, Matt is on. He does have a slide deck. He'll be going through a little bit more of the purpose of Inflection and some of the processes if we have enough time for that. We also wanted to give the school board some time to do a Q&A just to kind of clarify and understand the vision and mission of Inflection and how we will be using that in Red Wing as well. So Matt.
All right, I appreciate it. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, and Matt, I just want to tell, we have an audience out here. This is our educational planner called Inflection. So can everybody hear it okay? Okay, so this is, he got stranded with the cancellation, so he's gonna be here in person, but he's not. He's coming here, like he said, like Martina said, a red eye to get here, at least for tomorrow, be in the building. So go ahead, Matt, thank you.
All right, thank you. And as a former high school basketball coach, I appreciate the fact that we got time to, we got to keep track of time because there's a big game tonight. I appreciate the opportunity to talk and to share a little bit about our work with you in Red Wing. And I'm going to do it by providing examples as to where the work will take you all and take us, over the next 6 to 12 months and then and beyond in terms of, as Martina mentioned, a 5-year game plan. And I appreciate, I think it's Lisa that's going to help me with the slides. But I want you just to take a look at those beautiful faces. Those are your kids. I stole that right off your website. And I want you to note the 2060 midlife, mid-career. The kids that are looking at you right now that are in that image will probably be in their, well, not probably, they will be in their mid-40s in 2060. And the reason why we use that as, and we get people thinking in this way, it's like, what are we preparing kids for? I know for me, when I was their age, it was in the 80s, and actually maybe the late 70s. And here we are in 2023, as we project forward with the kids that are in your schools in Red Wing. You're talking about kids that are going to be at least where I'm at in my stage of my life, although I'm maybe mid-late career in life, in 2060, which is kind of mind-numbing a little bit. Go ahead and at least the next slide. Thank you. Give you a little sense of who we are. We are in Oregon. We're actually in Oregon. We do a ton of work really across the country. And we work with both small, rural, and remote districts, as well as larger urban districts. You'll see a couple of key players that are on there. I'm just putting it out there so you have a sense of who we are. We actually do a ton of work in the college and career readiness space, and specifically with the College Board and the AP program. We do research for the International Baccalaureate, if you're familiar with that, with IB. The AVID Center is not listed there, but we do a ton of work with the AVID Center. Right now, we are currently working with over 200 schools in about 30 different districts. And when I say working with the schools, we do similar to what we're doing with you. We're working with through the schools through the district. All right, go to the next slide. So what I'm going to do is just very quickly walk you through an example, and then I'll take questions towards the end here. But I'm just going to show you the process. Martina mentioned that tomorrow we're going to work with the leadership team and walk them through a very simple protocol to gather information from key stakeholders throughout your community, and including building staff, including some opportunities to gather information from students, that specifically at the secondary level, and then through processes that bring info in from families and from the community writ large. What you see in this process is what we're trying to do is capture a sense of Red Wing's identity and purpose. And when we say identity, what we are talking about are the values, the beliefs, the ways that you all in Red Wing see the world. That's this concept of identity. The concept of purpose is what are you trying to achieve? And specifically, what are you trying to achieve in terms of student outcomes? We've got two protocols that will gather info. And the example, what happens when we pull that information in is we start to see what's most important to the community by gathering information strategically from all the different stakeholders. This is Forest Grove Forest Grove School District, which is actually in Forest Grove, Oregon, just outside of the greater Portland metro area. And what you can see is as they went through a community engagement, they actually got feedback from thousands of individuals that was put together to identify that what was important to them were the concepts of community, resilience, and separation. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Thank you. What came out of that, or what we like to call maxims, but they're basically statements of identity. And you can see in Forest Grove, they care deeply, stand strong, and adapt and grow. And so as you can see in what's written there, encouraging and supporting each other in terms of caring deeply, standing strong, exploring solutions, overcoming obstacles, adapting and growing, learning, and working hard for our future. These become statements that as a system you use to both rally around in terms of the community, but also to make strategic decisions on in terms of how you move forward. And this is the kind of work that you need to do really before setting off and building out a strategic plan or making big decisions in terms of things like configurations, types of schedules, like at the high school level, different types of schedules. These are the having identity and clarity of your purpose and what you're trying to get done are critical. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Part of this, in terms of a statement of purpose, is identifying what you want all kids to take from your system. And you can see after 12 years, 15 years in Forest Grove, when they talk about kids who care deeply, you're talking about kids who have the ability to collaborate, who are, I believe that's empathetic. We stand strong, they're resilient and resourceful, I think, or is that responsibility? I'm having a hard time seeing it. Let me look at it real quick. And then in terms of adapt and grow, the ability to think critically and to communicate. That's an example of what over the next 3 to 4 months, we're going to be gathering information and be generating for you all to react and respond to, and ultimately solidify as kind of your statements of identity and purpose for Red Wing. We'll go through the same process that we did in Forest Grove and come up with something that looks similar but different because it's going to be specific to Red Wing. I'm going to pause right there. We call this setting the two anchors. What is your identity and what's your purpose? And I want to stop there, and then I'll illustrate how it gets used using a different district, how it gets used to build out a 3, 4, 5 year strategic plan. Any questions on this report?
Well, you're gonna roll, Matt. Keep going.
All right. So let's go ahead and next slide. Well, this is actually an example still from Forest Grove, but it actually illustrates how they've used it and actually even how they use it to communicate out. These are 2 different pages from their strategic plan. And obviously there's more pages to the actual strategy part of it, but this is the overview that they produced for the community. And so what they ended up doing is, when they start thinking about directions that you're gonna take and gonna move, you ground it within your identity. So you can see under preparation, Adapt and Grow, they identified the action plans and how they were going to measure their progress over time. All right, go ahead. The next slide is, I believe, Wheatland. So Wheatland, and they are the Pirates, as you can see. It's outside of Sacramento, about 1,000 kids in their high school. And they're actually a high school only district, but very similar size as Red Wing High School, but this is actually for the district. They went through, again, similar process. They came up with some different statements as to who they are and what they're trying to get done in terms of developing confident, connected and capable adults or kids as they walk into their future. Go ahead and go to the next slide. This is, and this is where Martina and I will be meeting a little bit on this tomorrow morning with some other folks. I will be wiping the sleep out of my eyes. Would have much rather been there last night to be with you all in person today, but so be it. There are the travel issues. But what you see here, and I'm just going to kind of walk you through this. It comes from organizational theory, and I don't care what type of organization you're running. Those that are most effective are those that know who they are. That's the shared identity piece, and knows what they're trying to get done. There's clarity of purpose. That's the shared vision for readiness. And what Forest Grove is doing, what we're working with Wheatland on, is when you think about education, all of the stuff in the middle. So if you see the shared identity and the shared vision for readiness, the stuff in the middle are the structures and the approaches to learning. And in short, your shared identity, your values and your beliefs should drive the structures that you employ that support your approaches to learning that align with your shared vision for readiness. And so if you actually, could you go one back, Lisa? Thank you. The learner profile is their shared vision for readiness. All right, go ahead and back. And go next one. You'll notice this says year 3. Here's year 0. This is where in our initial engagement with Wheatland, you can see there's a scale on the bottom from a 0 to 4. Whether or not they had a shared vision for readiness, whether or not they had clarity of identity. And what you see with the shared identity being a light blue is they actually did have some amazing pieces in play already. What they weren't doing, and the reason why it showed up a little bit light blue, is they weren't leveraging those shared values and those shared beliefs within their community to drive decision making. And they weren't reflected in the structures. The values and the beliefs weren't reflected in the structures and the approaches. And so this was the first initial assessment. Let's go to year 1. We're in year 1 with them right now. So go to the next slide. In year 1, what we've been working on is solidifying the shared vision for readiness, which was the visual I showed you earlier, as well as the shared identity. But then we've started work in other places, and specifically their hiring practices. I'm sure this is true for y'all in Red Wing. It's definitely true in Wheatland, just north of Sacramento. It's tough to get staff. It's tough to get people. I heard the challenges with bus driving. It's true everywhere. We work in a lot of places. It's true everywhere, as was stated. It's also true with teachers. It's also true with classified staff. It's also true with administrative staff. And one of the things that becomes important is that as you're hiring, you want to be hiring in such a way that you're bringing people in that fit the values and the beliefs and the purpose and believe in the purpose that you all as a community believe in and are working towards with your kids. And so that's one area that we just naturally fell into, where we've done a little bit more work on the hiring side. Right now, when you see some of the other areas to the right, including universal practices, that's what's happening every period, every day. What's going on at the classroom level across your system that you can be considered universal practices. And so we're doing work with them on that. The work that we're going to do literally tomorrow for part of the day with Martina and crew is really to self-assess, and you all self-assess where you're at internally with many of the key elements that are identified there. This is, and anywhere it was turning blue, if you remember in year 0, there were literally only 2 light blues. We are working on, when I say it's not a heavy hand from our end, it's us helping structure and guide the work that your internal staff will be doing. Go ahead and take a look at year 2. Thank you. Next slide. We plan on just kind of keeping the ball moving. And so this is where, and then go ahead and go to year 3. Oh, back one. Sorry. Go back up to year 3. Sorry, up 2. One more. Perfect.
I don't think there's year 3.
There we go. Sorry. That year 3 is ultimately where when I say we, again, I don't mean us, I mean where Wheatland is trying to go. We come in on the front end, just like we are with you, and kind of help set the direction of the work and the progression of the work over the next 3-4 years via strategic plan. So I'll leave it at that at this point, and we just entertain any questions, any ideas, any thoughts.
Go ahead, Ms. Osborne.
So thank you. I'm not sure how much information you've received about this already, but we just hired Dr. Wagner to be our superintendent beginning July 1st. So in the process of hiring a superintendent, we went through a bunch of different community engagement, community listening sessions, and they really were focused around what people wanted to see from district leadership, but a lot of other information came up from that. So I just wanted to make sure that you had access to that and to see where, some of that work that you're going to do has maybe already been done in a sense, or where there are things in there that, issues that came up in those listening sessions that you might want to delve into more, or things that need more explanation or exploration. That we're not kind of taking that information that we got from those great listening sessions and just letting it fall flat, continuing to push that forward and make sure that what we've heard from the community gets carried through into our strategic planning.
That absolutely. And what's interesting about this process, I mean, when we first engaged with you all through the bidding process, that was your original superintendent for prior to Frank stepping in, and we we worked a lot with Ann initially, Robertson, and we kept pushing it downstream. And the reason we kept pushing it downstream was kind of knowing the different pieces that were going to come into play, including that kind of feedback should be informing where we go. So I know for us, there's a point in time we say, hey, look, we can be on pause for quite some time. When you guys are ready, we'll come up alongside you and help you get moving. So that information absolutely will be part of the process. There will be other opportunities to gather community input, and specifically, and I'll reference it, but actually go ahead and show the next slide. One of the sorry, I keep going all the way to the pictures of the high school students. There you go. One of the protocols we use to gather input from families is really to have them identify what are the 7 or 8 attributes that you'd want to use to describe your own kids walking across the stage of graduation. And then we ask them to identify, if you go to the next slide, we ask them to identify which one has been the key to your success. And that's the kind of information we pull in and use to synthesize and create what I showed you for Forest Grove and from Wheatland. And so the information you all got through the listening sessions around what you want your next superintendent, where you want the district to go, will be coupled with this idea of really being able to say, hey, this is what we want for all of our kids. This is the idea of a shared purpose. And this is what we as a community need to rally around. One of the things I like to say, and I'll pick on Pittsburgh High School, which is not Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. There's a Pittsburgh, California. They have a huge high school, 3,700 kids. One of the biggest issues in schools is that we often treat the education process, including at the high school level, but even other levels, as if it's independent contractors working independently of each other. And that's a big part of what this particular protocol is, to get us all centered on what we're trying to get done for all kids. And when I say I'm a preacher's kid, I curse every once in a while. Don't tell my mom. You can tell my dad, but don't tell my mom. But how do you leverage the various types of community partners that you have in Red Wing that care deeply about kids? Well, part of it is for you as a district to be able to say, hey, this is what we're trying to get done. And this is, and therein lies this your ability and your ability as a board and as a district to be able to communicate to key partners that, hey, let's come together. I mean, we say this all the time. Kids don't start learning at 8 o'clock or whenever the buses are able to get them there, and stop learning at 3. They're always learning. And so part of this idea of a shared purpose in this process is going to be able to allow you to really leverage the fact that kids are learning all the time and leverage other key teachers and educators that are in their lives.
Very good. I know, is that, you have more, Matt, or is that the end of your presentation?
That's pretty much it.
Okay, all right, I have a question. Just Mr. Norton and Ms. Wagner, you want to take where we go from this presentation tonight? You talked about tomorrow's a big day. And that,
I just
so-
want to circle back to Anna's point to the listening sessions. I do believe Ann did, and Ann's on to shared the listening session feedback with Matt. And so over the course of the last few months, as Matt and I have met monthly, we've actually kind of looked at that, disaggregated, really thought purposely through what was most relevant and immediate to us and this process. So all of those pieces are being taken into consideration because we have exhausted a lot of our listening sessions with our families. We want to try to maximize what we can already have. The protocols that we'll go through tomorrow with the leadership team is really a train the trainer. So Matt will be training all of us to actually go out and extend the learning and collect that feedback so that we have as much as we can by the time the summer starts. So Matt, I don't think you're going to go through, are you going to go through the Think No Act?
No, I don't think we have enough time.
Okay.
But you can do it with the board later.
Sure. Matt has a lot of faith in me that I can take all of his knowledge and present it, but having him in person will be nice to kind of capture all of that with all of our leaders as well. But Frank, do you want to talk a little bit about working with Ken and then just navigating that a little bit with what you've done with him?
From Ken's perspective, basically, we're gonna talk more. He's gaining insight from me as to how we operate within the district itself. Community sense, I think, is coming from a little bit from Matt and connecting the community to the schools. A lot of my work with Ken is just conversations about what is it, a little bit of historical, which I don't have as interim, but a sense basically of what he can do for us based off of my knowledge of how the community interacts now with the schools. So that's kind of where we are, Ken and I are right now. He's absorbing as much as he possibly can. He has a lot of great questions, stumps me from time to time, but as I think about it, basically, it's really just about gaining that perspective so it can help us. But it's been great to work with him, actually, Matt. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Ken will be on the red eye tomorrow, so he's going to come and meet Red Wing up close in person. Just to give you a sense, he's a recently retired school superintendent in a district similar to Red Wing, and specifically a district about 4,000 kids, so maybe just a little bit bigger, but serves the Warm Springs Indian Reservation here in Oregon. And Ken has been instrumental in doing some amazing work, not just there was instrumental as superintendent doing work in that community but across the state, specifically around respectfully engaging intentionally with the tribal communities to create a seamless opportunity for kids from the reservation. So Ken's excited. He's excited to come out. He's a great guy. He was a wrestling coach, so I don't think he's watching the basketball game tonight, but we'll leave it at that.
It's just one more thing we have in common.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I'm a wrestling coach as well, so.
You
We
were?
stray, every once in a while, we stray off through conversations.
I bet you do.
All right, Matt, thank you. We look forward to seeing you in Red Wing here tomorrow. So,
Okay.
Martina, do you have anything else?
Coffee this morning. I told Martina when I talked earlier, it's like, oh my God, I was so looking forward to Mandy's first thing in the morning. But tomorrow morning, well, not
Yeah, we're getting coffee at Mandy's for Ken and Matt right away.
Great.
Just a couple of like logistical things. The one pager has our outline. We're right on track. So we'll do our train the trainer tomorrow with our district leadership and program supervisors to extend the reach there. I will facilitate a couple of community sessions as well as some student outreach. We are also doing something very, I would say, parallel in our district advisory committee too, with some desired lived experiences that will also feed into this. So we have many different threads coming in to really maximize. I look forward to just the whole process. And then just to speak a little bit to our start and end times, our grade level configurations, all of those things are the lily pads in between the two, the purpose and the vision. So I want you to know that all of this is going to encompass all of that. It's just right now we're at the 30,000 foot view because we need to know what our identity is in Red Wing moving forward. And so that's really our big ask and our why right now in this moment. But moving forward, working with Inflection and with Matt, we're going to get into the nitty gritty of all of those pieces, but we will do the heavy lifting of that. And like Matt said, they'll be guiding along the side to the work that we will be developing. So lots to come. So I look forward to doing the work with all of you.
Are you feeling better?
I probably look better than I feel. I'm going to be back tomorrow, but I'll wear a mask. So.
Okay, all righty. Anybody have any other questions for Matt or Martina or Frank? Okay, thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Other
Thank you.
topics?
See you in the morning.
Okay, other topics, we have teaching and learning, operations, human resource and negotiations, other general topics. We will meet as an agenda committee Wednesday morning for the next meeting on the 17th. My math is correct? Of April?
Yep.
So with that, anybody else have anything before the workshop? I will entertain a motion to adjourn the workshop. Moved by Ms. Ossendorf, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Tip. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The workshop is adjourned. We will start the regular board meeting approximately 6:05. And if you're all here about Tower View, we decided to put it on the agenda for us to discuss because it's been out in the community. That's what we're gonna do tonight. We're just gonna discuss it. No decisions made. We love the program. We just have to get the board up to speed as to what's going on. Okay? But if you wish to speak, there's a sign up back there. You sign the sheet, up to 3 minutes. And if you have a group of people, we have to recommend that you just pick a speaker for like a half a dozen of you or whatever. But we'll do public comment at that point, and later on during the meeting, during Mr. Norton's administrative report, we'll have a conversation between the board about Tower View. Okay? So maybe as I just rambled down, we may take a couple minutes after 6. This is why we want to have our own board meeting for rooms like this.
Should I just go forward a little?
Board meeting agenda. Are there any additions or corrections? I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Ms. Rose, moved by Ms. Rose, is there a second? Ms.
Second.
Bjornsted, any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item is our to educational plan. Ms. Rose is gonna read our mission statement.
The mission of the Red Wing Public Schools is to educate and inspire all students as they realize their full potential and become respectful, responsible, and productive citizens.
Thank you. And our next thing is recognitions of upcoming events. Ms. Smith, yeah.
Tomorrow night, 6 o'clock, the speech team is having a showcase, here at the high school. There will be 2 rounds, just to show what they've been working on all year. So, first round starts at 6, second round at 7. And it's always a fun thing to see.
H-Pod? I believe it said the H-Pod.
Okay. Yep.
Upper H-Pods, yes. Thank you. And if you get time to come out and see what they're doing, great opportunity to come and see what the kids put a lot of time and energy into that, and effort. So free of charge. Please join them. Anybody else have any upcoming events or recognitions?
I think I
Yes,
saw that
go
it was Assistant Principal Week.
Yes.
So thank you to all of our staff. We always appreciate everybody, but special shout out and thank you to those folks who keep us going.
Thank you. And we have a great audience here tonight. We have a weekly newsletter go out by email. If you're not on that, please get hold of, go on our website, get hold of like Ann Robertson. Get you signed up. It comes out automatically every Sunday. A little bit what's going on in the school district. We welcome our community members to be involved in hearing what's going on here in our district. So at this time, we'll have the public comment. And like I stated, I have a handful of people here, but when we have public comment, we want to read our public comment policy. The school board would like to provide interested community members an opportunity to provide appropriate public comment. We seriously consider all questions and concerns presented, but we follow protocols to ensure orderly operation of the meeting and the development of an appropriate response. Public may provide comment in person and sign in upon arrival, or public comment may be shared by emailing statement to myself, J.R. Bryant at rwps.org, or F.G. Norton at rwsp.org by noon the day of the meeting. The statement must include the writer's name and address. Upon review with the appropriate edits, as per expectations outlined in the public comment portion of the school board agenda, the individual will be invited to attend the meeting virtually and read their statement to the board during the public comment portion of the agenda. The following guidelines will be followed during public comment. We expect that comments be limited to 3 minutes per person, and a representative be selected to speak on behalf of a group of individuals attending the meeting for the same topic. School board members will listen to the public comments, but will not discuss the topic at the meeting. The superintendent and/or school board chair may provide a response outlining steps of the school district has taken or will take to address the concerns. A summary of the school district actions in response to the public comment will be provided to the school board, individuals submitting the public comment, and/or public at a later date as appropriate. We expect that comments remain respectful and appropriate and not identify any current or former students, their families, or staff members by name. Okay? Very clear. I have, like I stated, a few people. I'm just having how much order I have them here. I have Jamie Lorenz. You're first. Do you want to go first, Sheena? I just.
I'm reading on behalf of Josh Schmelson.
Well, will you sit down here and give us your name and address, Sheena?
Perfect.
And we will let you begin.
Awesome. I am Sheena Tisland. I am the language arts teacher at Tower View, and my address is 32812 Ski Road Trail, Red Wing, Minnesota. And I'm reading on behalf of Josh Nelson, who cannot be present today. His wife was in an accident, and they just got home from the hospital, and he's with her tonight. Alrighty, I'm skipping the first paragraph. I think you have a copy of this in order to get through this in 3 minutes, so hold your hats, people. Red Wing Schools committed to building a program that helped at-risk students find success 33 years ago. We've graduated over 700 students since then, and Tower View has become one of the best alternative schools in the state. At its heart, Tower View really is a Red Wing public schools program, both financially and educationally. Year by year, over 90% of the students are residents of Red Wing. Our staff members are on Red Wing contracts, and Red Wing holds the lease with the Anderson Center. In 2014, Red Wing Schools and Goodhue County Education District worked together for GCED to take over the programming aspect of Tower View in order to provide targeted services and credit recovery to our Red Wing students. We'd like to implore you to consider an alternative learning program, ALP, option to save the Tower View program that you have come to know and love. We believe there are financial benefits for Red Wing Public Schools by taking Tower View as an ALP. At a GCED board meeting on March 23rd, agenda item 5C addressed the changes proposed for ALC programming for next fall, including budgetary reconciliations and information regarding building onto River Bluff Education Center. Red Wing Schools has already signed a lease with the Anderson Center through 2028 that the district will be responsible for, whether there are students present or not. Red Wing Schools would continue to generate full ADM revenue for the students and would not lose student enrollment numbers. Red Wing Schools already holds contracts for the staff, and Tower View already uses all Red Wing UFARS codes and accounts payable. Red Wing Schools would have one student information system for attendance, grades, transcripts, etc. At this time, GCED and Red Wing use two different information systems, which means each Tower View student who graduates from Red Wing High School must have their transcript hand entered back into the Red Wing system each year, which leaves room for human error. Tower View has a very efficient student-staff ratio with a population of 60+ students. When we have a total ADM of over 60 students, the program has been running in the black while contributing to the overall graduation rate for Red Wing Schools. Tower View also has excellent outcomes for students. Student GPAs rise when they come to Tower View because of our self-paced curriculum, no homework policy, and a requirement that all work is completed at a C+ or above. We have a lot of data that documents positive outcomes for Tower View students and would love the opportunity to share it with this board when we have more than 3 minutes to present. On Friday, March 17th, the executive director of GCED informed the Tower View staff that next school year, the Tower View ALC program would be moved to a different undetermined location, and only 4 of our 8 staff members would be joining them. Our social studies teacher, work experience teacher, and math tutor contracts would not be purchased by GCED, and they would be back in the Red Wing system. This action would effectively end the Tower View program and the relationship we've had with the Anderson Center since 1989. Again, we'd like to implore you to consider an alternative learning program, an ALP, option to save the Tower View program that you have come to know and love. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Now I'm gonna go to Jamie. You can't hand that one off again, Jamie, now. Come on, sit down right here, please.
Small sheet of paper.
Give us your name and address, please.
My name is Jamie Lorenzen, and I live in Frontenac, 29065 Wood Avenue.
Good evening, welcome.
All right, thank you. I taught language arts at Red Wing High School between 1991 and 2011, and spent the final 7 years of my teaching career at Tower View Alternative High School. I came to Tower View from Red Wing High School for many of the same reasons that RWH students came and continue to come to Tower View. Red Wing High School was becoming too depersonalized, teacher-student ratios kept rising, and I felt myself becoming distressed to the point of quitting teaching altogether. Like most Tower View students, I found sanctuary, grace, beauty, calm, and a revived sense of educational purpose there. Tower View's unique culture and structure allowed me, in fact, to do the best teaching in my career. While at Tower View, I regularly reached out to Red Wing School District staff, administrators, and also civic clubs to discuss what Tower View offered students. It was a secret, too good to keep. The place really works to successfully educate individual kids who encounter roadblocks in their education. My Tower View colleagues and I especially advocated for the program in 2013 and 2018, years in which the Goodhue County Ed District attempted to decommission Tower View's present Anderson Center venue and thereby alter Tower View's proven educational approaches. Fortunately, ISD 256 prevailed both times and kept Tower View at the historic, eminently affordable, utterly beautiful, and nurturing Anderson Center. ISD 256's commitment to Tower View thus maintained the school's unique and time-tested, relation-based, self-paced, individualized educational methods that have helped keep students safe and secure, have helped create a culture where students' mental health may stabilize, and have helped allow students to develop positive relationships among a rich and diverse student and adult population, all the while helping students stay in school and graduate. My most treasured memory of working in this unique program was seeing multiple parents of Tower View students weep at parent-teacher conferences each semester, overcome with gratitude for how their children were thriving at Tower View after having struggled for so long. May ISD 256 keep Tower View under its umbrella to protect a successful and affordable program. Future local alternative school graduates will thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy. I'd hate to have seen the long version of that.
It was long.
See if I got the Alejandra Seegers. Is that it? Come on up, please. How are you?
Nervous?
Don't be. We're allergic to pain, so you're okay. Go ahead, give us your name and your address, please. You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Alejandra Severs, 901 South Garden Street in Lake City. My name is Alejandra Severs. I get really emotional, so I apologize. I am a 2015 graduate of Tower View Alternative High School. I am currently employed by Rice at Redwood as the Parent Engagement Coordinator. I also am a parent of the 7-year-old named Dominic, and as you can see, I'm having another one due on May 4. Like every Tower View alternative student from Redwing High School did not work for me. Coming from another country and not speaking the language, I felt left out and I never felt like I belonged. When I found out Tower View existed, I was still hesitant to go. I was still not speaking the language very well, and I knew I would have to start over in a new school. When I first came there to meet the staff and see the school, I first fell in love with the beautiful buildings and the grounds, so full of art and nature. It is a campus where any student can grow academically, culturally, and socially. Tower View is also from Tower View is also far from the high school and so many bad memories of it. The last thing I needed to see again while finishing my high school degree are the front doors of the school that I desperately wanted to leave. The second thing I fell in love with was the accepting and professional ISD 256 staff and Anderson Center staff. They are personal, kind, and relatable. Everything any student will want to feel safe and secure in a school, especially these days. They all help me not only with my education, but also with my mental health. They all inspire me to be a better in many ways. For instance, Ben Slevin, he what helped me find out what I was passionate about in life. He also taught in a classroom where the names of all students who have ever graduated from Tower View are painted on the wall. Ben in his room made me feel like all students matter, including myself. Emily Christensen was another wonderful person to have in my life. She was always by my side as I struggled with math, and she also helped me get into college. Josh Nelson also was a great influence on me. He never gave up on me, and he helped me graduate when I thought about dropping out of school. Thanks to the Tower View staff on the Tower View campus, I feel like I belong. The staff made me feel confident, and they all made me feel like I matter. I could not have asked for more in a school, and I really hope Tower View stays Tower View. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think I missed my opportunity.
What?
To speak.
Yes, fill it up. Go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you. Just wanted to make sure.
Thank you very much. You did a wonderful job.
Thank you.
You did very good. Victoria Fox. Welcome. Good evening.
Thank you.
Give us your name and your address, please.
My name is Victoria Fox, and I live at 351 Cannon View Drive here in Red Wing. When I heard about the possibility of Tower View closing, it broke my heart. As a former alumni, I feel I would not be where I am today if it wasn't for the program at Tower View. I dropped out my senior year here at the high school in Red Wing. Having ADHD, severe anxiety, and severe depression, I couldn't function in the large class sizes, nor could I learn at the same pace as my classmates. So it was to stay and be ridiculed by my classmates because I was failing or leave, so I left. I found myself on the doorstep of Tower View, hoping for help. I was quickly taken under their wing. I quickly found that school was not that bad. With the smaller class sizes, I was able to get the help that I needed so I could understand the material. I was no longer embarrassed of my mental illness. I felt for once in my life that the teachers believed in me and wanted me to succeed. This program works. Fast forward 25 years, our oldest daughter was getting bullied here at the high school, which in turn, she became diagnosed with severe depression and suicidal tendencies. Without a second thought, we enrolled her at Tower View. All she wanted to do was go to school. I saw the light come back into my baby's eyes, and it was no longer a struggle to get her to go to school. Just like in my experience, the teachers believed in her, and her depression lessened. She ended up getting her diploma and having a year and a half years of PSEO done, and is now on her second year at Hamline University. She is hoping to graduate this summer from Hamline University with her teaching degree. Because of her experience at Tower View, it has inspired her to become a high school teacher, and she wants to teach at Tower View. She now wants to be that person that children come to when they're lost and feel hopeless. And she will say, it's okay to not be okay. We had lost my sister to suicide, which in turn, we have gained a bonus daughter. As I watched her struggle with the loss of her mother, as well as trying to make new friends in a new town, was devastating. She struggled so hard in the very school that brought myself to my knees. I watched her shut down. Her grades dropped, and she became withdrawn. Depression reared its ugly head. Once again, without a doubt, I enrolled her at Tower View. She needed this program, the program that allows her to learn at her own pace, and for her to know it's time. If she needs time to grieve or process this change, that she can, and it's okay, and that she can pick up where she left and not be so far behind that it's unattainable. I watched her make friends with people that all have their own story why Tower View is working for them. But the one thing is common is they just needed that one person that believed in them and had the extra time to help. The program and teachers at Tower View are phenomenal. I thank you for this program and continue, and with all my heart, please don't take this program away from our struggling youth that just needs that one place that allows them to succeed. I speak on behalf of myself and my family. This program is a success and is a definite staple needed in our community.
Thank you. Just so I can speak for myself, but the board, we have no intention tonight to look at eliminating the Tower View program. But just like anything else, we have, since there's community information out there, we decided to have a conversation about it. It's always healthy to talk about things and look at things to see how they're doing. But nobody here, to my knowledge, is interested in shutting down the Tower View program. Maybe it could be somewhere else, do something different, not somewhere else, but look differently at the same location. Maybe that's it, but no, we're not, we're not, to my knowledge, we're not looking at shutting it down. Okay? Stephanie Rogers. Thank you for your comment. Appreciate it. Hello, Stephanie, welcome. Good evening.
Thank you. Stephanie Rogers, 149 Tower View Drive in Red Wing. And I am the executive and the artistic director of the Anderson Center, and I should have brought Kleenexes with me tonight. I wasn't fully prepared for all of the beautiful statements that others have made. It has come to my attention that there is some misleading information that has been circulating in the community about the facilities at the Anderson Center and our willingness and ability to maintain spaces and work as partners with Red Wing Public Schools. I am surprised and dismayed that rumors could threaten the longstanding relationship between the Anderson Center and Tower View Alternative High School. And I'm here tonight to make sure that you as board members have accurate information as you make really important decisions for the future of our students. And to let you know that the Anderson Center is committed to continuing our close working relationship with Red Wing Public Schools to meet the needs of students, staff, and families through the Tower View Alternative High School program. We are a nonprofit that stewards space for public benefit. All of our leases are below market rate, and your lease includes all of the janitorial services, the snow removal, the grounds upkeep. And I can let you know, we don't make money off of that. We do that because the program is aligned with our values and our mission as a nonprofit. I see the students' confidence increase. I see it firsthand in the way they carry themselves in the hallways. And I saw that very quickly after taking my position 5 years ago. The students themselves tell us that being in a different environment gives them a chance for a fresh start that some other locations in similar settings or closer to the places where they were encountering roadblocks doesn't do that for them. As stewards of space, we continue to make improvements and conduct necessary repairs throughout our campus. Like all prudent building managers, we looked hard at air quality during the COVID-19 pandemic. We installed ionization units to reduce virus transmission, both in Tower View classrooms and in our own offices and public spaces. I received requests for improvements on March 14th, and since then I've been working closely with the Anderson Center's property director to plan for improvements. In the past 2 weeks, I've had good dialogue with Red Wing Public Schools leadership and with the executive committee of my own board. I find no reason that requested updates to individual classroom spaces can't be made by the time that school starts in the fall. And my staff and I are willing to work with Red Wing Public Schools to improve building control. And I have given my cell phone number to multiple of you and would be happy for all of you to have it. If you have any questions about facilities, either current facilities or plans for future facilities, please come talk to me.
Thank you. All right, Grace, I can't read your last name. Delarn?
Horn.
Horn?
Hi.
That's D, oh, D Horn, Grace D. Horn.
Horn.
Thank you.
Hi.
Welcome, good evening.
I'm Grace D. Horn.
Okay, I thought it was one word.
It could be if you wanted to. I live at 304 Sanderson Street here in Red Wing, and I'm representing myself as a former student of Tarview who graduated in 2018. I prepared a speech. I'm probably not going to use it. This is all from the heart. And I know you don't have any intentions on getting rid of the program, but I want to talk about my experience before and after Tarview. Here's the tears. So back in 2016, I was homeless. I was living at my friend's house, other friends' houses, just kind of couch hopping. I didn't have the best relationship with my own mom. So I decided to live here in town, and I fortunately was able to get approved to go to Tarview after nearly dropping out of Red Wing High School. I felt like an outsider. I felt like this wasn't the right place for me. It wasn't the right education system for me. The first year I went to Tarview, I didn't do much. It took me a long time to get used to the no homework policy. But over time, you know, I was acquainted with it a little bit more, and I excelled more than I could have ever imagined at Tarview itself. So 2016 is when I started to go to school there, and I graduated in 2018. And by the end of my education with Tarview, I should say, I was the representative of Tarview. I had a 3.5 GPA after nearly failing out of school and dropping out when I was 15. And now I've moved on to being encouraged by Miss Emily Christensen herself to go to the college here in town. And I'm so confident and so happy to say that Tarview as a program, all the educators, everybody who's there to support us has led me to the place I am today as a Phi Theta Kappa member. I'm a 4.0 honor roll student. I am president of the Student Senate for MSC Southeast here in town. And I seriously would not be able to say that if I didn't go to school at Tarview. If I didn't get the opportunity to go, I would be a dropout. I would have just accepted my fate, and then that was it. I believe that Tarview, the education program that they have, it helps students. It doesn't work against them, it works for the students. When I came to this school here in Red Wing, I was overwhelmed with the amount of students here. I was underwhelmed with the amount of support that I received from teachers, but obviously teachers can only do so much for the 40 students that they have in their classes. So going to a very, very quaint place where there was only 60 students, I was able to excel in a way that I could have never imagined. And I think that's where I can end it, saying that this program has absolutely changed my life. And I think it will forever.
Be proud of yourself. You did a wonderful job. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, Alexandra, another name here. Solesky.
Yeah, close.
Is that pretty good? Come on up forward. Good evening. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Alexandra Slisky. I live at 519 Buchanan Street here in Red Wing, Minnesota. I graduated from Tarview in 2018, and I'm going to start my journey actually here at the high school in 8th grade. When I started here, it was rough. I did not come to school, and it was because I didn't feel like the teachers cared at all. I'd go and I'd ask questions, and my questions would get very vague answers, or it'd be like, read the book. It's like, okay, I read the book. Book's not helping me. So I'm coming to you. And not that it's the teacher's fault. I feel like there's just not that personal relationship like there is at Tarview. I don't remember how I found out about Tarview, probably Chelsea from Youth Outreach. I was really lost. I went to the mental hospital twice while I was here, and like I was just going through the works. I was suicidal, bipolar disorder, major depressive disorder, major anxiety disorder. And then I went to Tarview, and I didn't really think it was going to help me. I went very skittish. I went in just kind of thinking I needed a change. I needed something different. Went to Tarview, and I met Ben, and I kind of told Ben, I was like, I don't really think this is going to do anything for me. And he told me I was wrong, and he was right. He was very right. And then I met Jamie, and Jamie changed my entire viewpoint on everything. He is the best teacher I've ever had. So personable. And he and the other teachers at Tarview
And just the staff, not just the teachers, just the staff in general, they made me feel like I had a home away from home. My home wasn't the greatest. I am, a graduate of high school, which I never thought was gonna happen. I'm alive, which I didn't think I would ever be. I thought I was gonna just off myself. It's horrible. I'm a mom now, and I just want my kid to have that kind of opportunity in the future if that's something she needs. I have a really great, stable job. I'm a new business coordinator at Securian Financial, so I do life insurance, and I don't think I'd ever be where I am if it weren't for Tower View. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Again, thank you everybody that spoke. Appreciate it. We're gonna go on. Do you have anything you want to say, Mr. Norton?
No, I'll be presenting it basically in
Okay.
my portion of it. So.
We will talk more about this later in the agenda here. Okay. At this time, we have school board reports. Do we have any school board reports?
Nothing from negotiations.
Go ahead, Ms. Tiff.
I need a moment, but.
Well, I'll go in front of you. How's that?
Okay, that'd be great.
Thank you. I'm on the LMC committee, Labor Management Committee for Insurance, and we're starting to meet every month now, just because health insurance is that big gorilla that's in the corner that nobody get their hands around because it's huge. Our costs went up 18.5% last year for a school district, and our usage and our claims are high. So we're probably anticipating another increase. We're looking at other alternatives for our healthcare. All preliminary stages. Just so you know, we're early on in the year that Blue Cross Blue Shield takes the claims and works on it to see what's going to be down the road. So that's all coming down the road, and there'll be more down the road for all of us to go. So go ahead, Ms. Taylor.
We had a district advisory committee meeting.
Yes,
Not sure when it was, a couple of weeks ago before break. Martina talked a little bit about it or mentioned it with in the workshop, but one of the things that we did, or the main topic for that meeting, was to get together in like cohorts where we were able to meet students together, staff, leadership group, parents and community members, and our goal for the day was to come up with desired lived experiences for what Redwood Public Schools will look like in the future. It was very beneficial, very interesting to be able to see that. It was, I talked to Martina a little bit beforehand because my role, I have a number of those roles, and she said, just go with your heart and join the group that you feel you fit in with best at this moment. And so I chose parents. So it was very interesting to be able to sit with the other parents that were there and just talk about what should our schools look like. And just a lot comes to mind after listening to the wonderful speakers today, and I don't need to go into that, but it is really exciting to me to be a part of this process through the district advisory committee. And we have, I think, around 30 people that have regularly been showing up from all areas of the community. And I'm just really excited that with this and with our educational planner and everything that we're doing, it's just exciting, the process. So with this particular committee, this is just the first step. We have 2 more meetings this year. We're going to take our list of desired lived outcomes, narrow them down, and then turn them into action steps. And then they will also be used through the educational planner as well. And what does this look like moving forward for community members, staff, students, parents?
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Nothing further. We'll go to administrative reports. Mr. Norton.
So I've got the first one real quick, it's just on field trips. And so the field trip was within your packet inside there, just an update basically to that field trip took place. Already taken place basically, but just to bring it to the board's attention that they went. Anybody have any questions on that field trip? Our people are going over and demonstrating their skills basically, CTE skills. That was a successful venture over into the cities. Second item that I have is about Tower View. And I wanted to inform the board basically as to the steps that have been taken over the last several months and the community as well through my report. So there's many factions or many facets basically to what I'm about to tell you. So bear with me. If I go astray, just ask questions. Just raise your hand and say, can you back up a second? Okay. So in communicating basically, our portion with the district is that we are the keepers basically of the facility. We rent from the facility, the Anderson Center, the actual facility. That's 5 classrooms down inside, plus the grounds, those kinds of things. So from our standpoint, the district standpoint, that's where Tower View is located. That's where the program is located from the district. And the district is the one who makes those payments toward keeping the kids out at that and keeping our teachers out inside that program. The GCED runs that program out there. Tower View is a GCED program. GCED utilizes our staff as well. So our portion of it is that the staff members who are out there that you've talked about today, the Bens, the Jessies, all of them, those are not all of them, but the staff members that are out there are Red Wing employees. GCED contracts with us to be able to buy time and utilize those employees basically to run the Tower View program, to run the ALC. So the building is what we rent, and then the staff members are ours, and GCED buys that time. GCED is a collaborative basically of surrounding districts. Lakeview, for example, Goodhue, for example, the surrounding districts in the Goodhue County. So the compilation of those people, they have superintendents at each one of those, and they have board members. Currently, the Director Mornstead is on that particular committee and collaborates with GCED. Those other districts, including this district, wanted to know a little bit more about the expenses of GCED. How are the teachers that are underneath our control, under our contract, being paid? What are the expenses? How much do we pay to educate a child out at the ALC? Also, how much do we pay to educate children that we send into River Bluff? River Bluff is the building that's attached or across, is on our property basically, but it's the property that has the River Bluff building on it. And inside that building, there are also GCED programs. There's an alternative school within that building. It's not the same, doesn't run the same as the ALC out at Tower View, but it is an alternative school within that building as well. The cost to be able to educate kids in that particular building and the cost to be able to kids out at the ALC, that we've learned of those costs. GCED superintendents and board members learned of those costs. And they gave a directive basically, can you look into those costs to see how can we reduce those costs? If we, for example, get an ADM from the state of $10,000 per student from the state, and it's costing us, I'll use an example, don't quote me on these numbers, Jackie might have to help me, $14,000 to be able to educate a kid out there, that's $4,000 basically in extra to be able to educate a kid out at Tower View, and $4,000 times the 60 kids we're sending out there, for example, okay? Just don't quote me on those numbers, please. But that's just an example that piqued the interest of the board and piqued the interest basically of the other board members and the other superintendents within the district as to how much it costs to be able to go there. They gave the directive basically to GCED administration, how can you reduce those costs? How can you make sure that the ADM to be able to send a kid from Lakeview or Lake City to the ALC out at Tower View doesn't cost me that much to be able to send a kid there, because we also have to transport kids from Lake City there. So can you help us with that? That was what was asked. And the administration at GCED did just that. Looked into it and said, we have a program within River Bluff that runs as an alternative learning center. And we have a program that runs out of the ALC called Tower View. Those two programs are different, but if we combine those two programs together with the staff members we have here and the staff members we have here, combining those two programs together, could we do the same program more financially feasible for all districts? Not just our district with our kids out there, but all of the districts. And that includes the kids within the current River Bluff program and the kids out at Tower View. Given that direction, there was communication that happened between each of the entities, each of the districts, through the administration at GCED, and it was presented to us to be able to say, if we reduce the number of staff at Tower View, that would get us to the goal of reducing the cost to be able to go to that particular facility. So that's one piece of it for the board, okay? One piece of it is that there's a little bit about, we need to talk about finances. Now, money's not everything. Obviously, we've got stories that demonstrates, right? The other portion of it was back in our district, in this particular district, but it bloomed out into the other districts as well. When I started in this particular interim job, one of the directions I was given was not only looking at the finances for our programming at the GCED, but also looking at the safety and security of kids in this building and the staff in this building and the staff in all buildings that our kids go to. So in the process of looking at that, I learned that the security isn't the same at Tower View as it is in all of the other buildings. It's 60 kids that go out to that particular building. We need to ask and look into the safety and security at that particular building. At the same time that we were doing that, we're also looking at, it came up that there might be the rooms themselves. Tell me about the updates that are happening within the rooms themselves. So I sent out, it had some studies done as far as what was happening within the classrooms, as far as our ventilation systems within the classrooms, as far as the quality of the classrooms, those kinds of things. General upkeep happens all the time, but the buildings, we've been using Tower View for 32 years, 33 years, somewhere inside there. So they're taking care of it, but all buildings degrade over time. So I needed to investigate that portion as well. So over time, I'm looking into, I'm saying, where are we with the ventilation system? Go out and test the ventilation system. Go out and see if there's quality air issues within the classrooms out inside there. So we had testing that was done with that. At the same time, we're still asking questions of GCED. How can you lower the cost to be able to fund all of these programs within the buildings? So those three things are happening, okay? Safety, security, making sure that the building and the air quality and all of those things are okay within the building. Once we had all of that information, then I approached the Anderson Center to be able to have a conversation with the staff at the Anderson Center, to have a conversation about what can we do to bring it up so that the Anderson Center, so the Tower View can either stay here, or do we need to be able to pull it out? Do we need to be able to pull it out only temporarily to be able to say, make these improvements and work with us to be able to make these improvements? And talking with the Anderson Center on several occasions, and I'm still in communication, we just talked again today. I met with them again today. So in having those conversations, they're coming to a place basically of, yes, we can do that. Yes, we can do that. Yes, we can do that. While that was happening, however, we needed to still move on the other piece of it. We needed to be able to say, what can we do to make sure that financially all kids can go to that alternative school? It's not financially feasible for somebody from another district to pay $400 a day to send several kids over to the alternative school. They're not going to send those kids into that program. They'll do it if it's necessary to be able to go there, but we don't have them coming to the school. It's just not financially feasible for those other schools to be able to do it. So the charge was given to them to be able to reduce the costs. I know I've said that several times, but it's important to understand that while we were looking at, is it feasible to stay at the Anderson Center simply for security reasons and simply for the environment that the kids are learning and the teachers are learning in, how can we make it manageable for these districts to be able to pay, to be able to send kids to that building? It's to today, at this particular time period. There's a deadline for the GCED to keep our staff. That deadline was April 1st. If they were going to employ all of our staff that are out there, they needed to be able to inform those staff by April 1st that they were going to be employed and by contract, basically, by GCED in order to meet that deadline. They met that deadline by saying, these particular staff members, we're not going to employ you at this particular time. We need to pull you out of that ALC programming. Okay, so that portion has happened, so they've met the deadline of April 1st. Now, April 1st is come and gone, obviously, but those staff members have been informed that they'll be coming back. Remember at the very beginning, they haven't lost their job. We have those contracts. So those employees will be coming back into our contract, be coming back into our buildings, be employed by us, and be teaching within this building, if this happens, if we move forward. So that portion is happening. We go back to what we were talking about at the Anderson Center. The Anderson Center has said to us, what is it that you need, and have that conversation. We would need you to do to improve the building. Now, there's nothing the test came back okay. So the test is not as if it's an environment that they can't be in. Now, there are issues out there, yes, but all older buildings have issues. But it's not a significant issue within that building. There needs to be changes within the building, yes, so the kids and the staff are safe out there as far as safe meaning that the air quality is okay out there, the ventilation system is okay out there, and there isn't any problems with the quality within the rooms. That can be fixed, okay? The Anderson Center, as Stephanie's already indicated, is making changes in the ventilation system, but it's 2 years away completely. I talked with Joe out at the Anderson Center. He said he can make changes to the ventilation system within there so that that's okay. The flooring can be done. The safety and security portion of it, as far as cameras that this building has and all the other buildings have, and the entry system, security at the entry doors, because of the climate that we live in right now, that is also on the table for the Anderson Center and for the school district to be able to look at as far as what do we need. And the other, I keep saying the district, but in saying that, I'm talking about the other districts as well. What is that gonna look like to make sure that the safety and security of our kids is covered? Just a kid in this building is covered just as well as a kid out at the Anderson Center. How can we make that happen? And those conversations are ongoing. So when the chair talks about, we're not talking about closing it, there are deadlines. And those deadlines have been met so that those staff members are coming out. If we can't fix the air quality, we can't do the security portions of it, then yes, we said we may need to be able to pull out of that particular building until those are met. Talking with the Anderson Center and doing that, we are closer to being able to do that. We're close to being able to say, could you stay out there? One of the things that the community is talking about and people have raised here is a sense of an ALP versus an ALC. We are currently an ALC, meaning that we are collaborating with other districts to be able to run a program so that they can come. Now, the majority of the kids that go to that particular program are Red Wing students. They're Red Wing, but anybody from the other districts can send kids to that. If we went to an ALP, that would still be possible, but we would be running that. We'd have to pull out basically of that collaborative. Time for another, that's another discussion basically for the board at that particular time, but I just wanted to bring you up to date as to, and then open it up for questions. It wasn't very succinct, but I wanted to make sure that everybody understood. One, that it's ongoing discussions. Two, there was a deadline that we needed to be able to put into place to be able to say, what are we gonna do to reduce the staff? Because we're one entity. There's 5 other districts that are saying, yes, it's great because the ALC is pretty close to you guys, but we're sending our kids from quite a ways away. We have to remember that the GCED works in a collaborative and they have a say in what that ALC looks like as well, because it's run by GCED. We again, rent the building. The building is ours basically, but the program is not ours. Okay? I'll open it up to questions.
The reason it's on the agenda is, we talked at our agenda committee, word was out in the public, as you can see, one of the biggest groups we've had in our meeting for some time. So I've asked that we put this on the agenda for us to discuss. And always have, yeah, just a second, let me finish it first. I mean, and so I want to get the information out, be open, so you can't make decisions unless you have all the best information in front of you going forward. So we're not here to make a decision tonight, we'll only discuss it. So I'll end up that with Ms. Tippett.
Thank you. I did watch the GCD board meeting, from before break on the 23rd. And, from watching that, it seemed that before they could make decisions on, what should happen with the program, they needed decisions from us. Is that still the case? Do we need to, is there another deadline that we need to meet soon?
I don't know when I did that.
No, there's not a deadline. The only deadline would be that, where are we going to relocate if we need to relocate? And really, it's about, our contract, by the way, goes out to 2028. We'll be utilizing the Anderson Center to some degree in that building until 2028. Has to be for instructional because it's lease levy. So instruction will happen out there as to what that looks like. But it is in our court basically, because only in that we lease that, if we pay the lease on that particular property. They can go ahead with what they want to be able to do. They may be talking about more along the lines of conversations about increasing the classrooms that we rent. You know, if the Anderson Center, which I told you is willing to be able to help us with, if they say the lease is the lease and this is the way that it is, that's not what they say. But if they're saying that the lease is the lease and this is the property that you're renting, yes, then that would be up to us and we would say, well, then we can't utilize this and we'll do something different with it. That's not what they're saying.
Ms. Roll.
I have two questions. One is, if this is a GCED program, why is Red Wing Public Schools solely responsible for the lease? That's my first question. The second question is, are there or were there or have there been some health concerns of students and or staff that have come forward because of the conditions of the building?
So the first one I looked into and I could not find the answer as to why we are leasing that, why we're solely responsible for that. I checked even as late as today, basically. I'll need a little bit more time to do some more digging as to what happened. You have to remember that was 33 years ago, and it's been updated every once in a while as that happens. But where it originated, we were the sole providers basically of taking that space. Now it's changed. We used to be responsible to some degree for the janitorial services out there, the upkeep of the building. And that switched when one of the contracts was renegotiated. But I honestly don't know where that originated from, okay? I can tell you, yes, without disclosing names or whether it's a faculty member or a student, there was a request to look into a health concern within one of the classrooms out there. And the investigation was done, and we have the results of that investigation. And what we found was that it doesn't rise to a level that we would be able to say that that is the cause of the health concern. To put it simply, basically the test came back and it says medium as far as a mold count within that, but that isn't a high level. So, and we wouldn't be able to say that report led to any health concerns within that, with the person that we're talking about.
But medium is kind of concerning.
That's why we're talking with the Anderson Center and saying, medium is kind of concerning, what can you help us with?
Did this person that had the illness, is this person back in the building?
Person is back in the building. We've made accommodations, basically. We put in all of the classrooms, not only into that classroom, but we're installing air filters within each one of the classrooms, standalone filters. So the filtering system now is taking care of it. The air quality within there. And the next phase would then we know where the problem was, and that's been remediated as well. The next stage would be basically getting rid of anything that could cause that, the air system and the carpet within the classroom. That's our next phase. So since those remedial pieces were put into place as far as the filters within each one of the classrooms, that my understanding is that the health concern has gone down, no longer a concern.
I'll just add a little bit to the discussion here. Again, I want to appreciate everybody coming out tonight and everybody that spoke. Somebody alluded to ALP, I think it was Sheena and Josh. We had that conversation today. I did meet out today. Therese and I met with Stephanie and Joe and Mr. Norton, because I hadn't been out there in ages. I've been up to the gallery out there and viewed that, to the barn for dinner or luncheon that one time. So we had a nice conversation. Yeah, I think I am interested in ALP, and Martina, who is our incoming superintendent, has got extensive experience in the ALP program. But we need to have more conversations with MDE, Minnesota Department of Education, about how that would run. We have a middle school program that we haven't even talked on about, so we don't want to jeopardize any of that also. But ultimately, I'm one person. There's 5 of us here today. There's 7 total. I'm interested in ALP as we go forward, but I'm also interested in seeing what our overall costs are if we can. And Josh brought some of that up through Sheena's conversation, and Josh and I have had a phone conversation on that. So we have a lot more work to do, and nothing's gonna be decided tonight. And, but it's great to have this conversation because, like I said earlier on, you as we as parents, as business owners, as community members, as employees, all that, you always periodically look at how you do things to see if you can do it differently. It's normal. You should do that. I do that. This is just one of the pieces of the pie that we have as a school board to do, and we'll look at it. But I am not interested in doing anything other than trying to grow that program. And how we do that, we have to look at the finance, because Mr. Norton's right. If it's costing $4,000 to $8,000 more per kid to go there, and all of a sudden we have 100 kids there, do the math. It's not, we have a declining enrollment, we can't afford that. So we have to come up with different ways. And this begins the process. You have my word that we'll continue the dialogue with no decisions made tonight. And we'll go forward. Anybody else have anything? Yes, Ms. Rowe.
I would just ask that as we continue on these conversations, it'd be really helpful to have factual, real-time numbers. I think we need to know exactly how much in the hole it is. I'd really like to know why Red Wing is paying for the full lease when it's a collaborative program among a group of districts that all students from all of those districts go to or have the option to go to. So I'd like to know that. I also am curious about the history of why it's Red Wing teachers on a Red Wing contract that are out there and not a GCED contract. That feels a little messy to me. So, you know, I think it's the beginning of a really great conversation to have because clearly this is a very important program. I've been out there many times. I've interacted with many students through the years, and we know that it provides a wonderful opportunity. And I don't want to see that go away, but I do think that the questions that are being brought today are important questions to ask because we are stewards of the tax dollars that come in. We want to make sure that we're doing the very best we can. We're already talking about having to reduce some of our budget this year, and that's gonna continue, those conversations, even though we have a referendum that was a straight renewal. The fact that we have declining enrollment, is going to cause us to have those conversations continually. And so how do we keep a wonderful program like what is happening out at Tower View? How can we keep that and be fiscally responsible at the same time? So if we can share some of the cost of the lease, that would be awesome. If we, you know, and I'm also concerned about the teachers who now don't have a renewed contract. Can you speak a little bit more to that? Because if there's no change in the program, but now we've eliminated 4 of those teachers going, is that right, 4? No. We haven't eliminated them, they're just doing something different, not out at Tower View.
Correct.
So, and I'm assuming those folks are on the seniority chain, so they still have jobs. So how are we educating students out there in that environment with 4 less teachers?
It's not 4.
Okay,
2 regular education teachers at this
Okay.
particular point.
okay,
And those have been reassigned, and then support staff to some degree as well.
Okay.
So they are our teachers on our contract, and they will, as I stated, be reabsorbed back into this in here. So anybody that's, let's say it's a math teacher that's coming back in, or an English teacher, or a social studies teacher, the core subject basically that's coming back in, they will come back into this system, and they still have their jobs. As far as educating the kids that are out there, they'll just be educated by fewer teachers. If the program stays out there. If the program doesn't stay out there, then the kids will be relocated to another environment and be combined with the ALC that's currently functioning.
Let's get the information. Let's do it.
Why were those teachers cut? Has the enrollment gone down out there, or what is the reason for not needing those 2 additional teachers?
It's the combination, if you combine programs together. So there's a River Bluff ALC program, and there's an ALC Tower View program. If there's 70 kids in this particular program, and there's 30 kids in this particular program, combine them together, utilizing these teachers to engage with these kids.
Has it been decided that those programs will be combined? That has already been determined by GCD? So is it possible that these teachers will be back at Tower View if those programs do not combine? Or are they automatically?
There's a discussion that's happening, from my understanding, there's a discussion that's happening with the GCED board, a workshop, to be able to have those kinds of conversations. But the direction the initial direction from the superintendents was to look at reducing the staff members, combining these 2 programs together somehow to be able to reduce the costs. And that happened on a deadline. Yes, in answer to your question, it is possible, probably, if we could look at something different to be able to do that. But there was deadlines that needed to be met as far as contractual issues are concerned.
What would the timeline be for, what would the timeline be for having that final decision? If GCED's board is in the process of discussing what their alternative learning center programs will look like, when would that be taking place? So that if we decided we wanted to explore, Red Wing schools solely being responsible for Tower View, what timeline are we looking at for that to happen?
That's a great question. I don't know that. I think that'll be a conversation that's had tomorrow night at the workshop. But that conversation will take place. How fast do we need to be able to move? When would we need to let them know? Those kinds of things would take place. I'm assuming. But I don't know that. Again, we're the facility, they're the program. They decide what happens with that particular program and the number of staff that they have. That's GCED. Ours is the facility. We have one piece of it, and Director Bjornstad, as far as the conversation, having that conversation with that board and saying, this is what the direction we'd like to be able to see, Red Wing's direction, we'd like to be able to see happen. But we're one of
She's the person for the job. I will just add real quick here, we're gonna probably move on here, because like I said, we're not making a decision. Meeting with Stephanie and Joe today, they are committed to doing what they can, what needs to be done for security, ventilation and all that. Now, won't happen overnight, but we walked the building and they're very open to having that as a landlord to do something there. So, and who doesn't want to have their staff and students safe? Who doesn't? Nobody does. Everybody wants to have them as safe as possible. So they're taking the initiative to say, yes, we want to do something here to increase our staff safety and the students and the people, the public that come to the galleries on Wednesday through Sunday. So that all has to be taken into effect. So this is the art scare.
So tomorrow, we're having a workshop with GCED board members and also our superintendents to talk about the long-range planning for next year and years to come. And then GCED board only meets once a month. So we just had our March meeting. Our next meeting will be the 27th of April, I believe. So, I really, if you have not watched the meeting from the 23rd and looked through the information on Board Book, I really, really would like everyone to take a look at that because it is so much. I can't synthesize it for you. It's a lot. And I think that this workshop meeting will workshop meeting be recorded, Sherry? Yes, so you can then, I would encourage everyone to watch that meeting because I'm imagining that's going to be a lot of information for me to synthesize for all of you. And I would rather just have you watch it as opposed to me trying to
Put too much
remember
pressure on her.
every day. It is way too much pressure.
She's fine. She can do the job.
I know, I have confidence. One other thing to remember, if we do decide to, or consider, if we do decide to do an ALP at Tower View, that's 60-some kids that will be now back as Redwood Public School students that aren't counted as Redwood Public School students right now. They are right now.
Yes.
Fully?
Yeah.
Fully, okay,
They're in, that spreadsheet I have, they're in that tuition outnumber.
okay,
We collect the ADR and then we pay GCD.
right.
So as confusing it is for all of you, it's just a little bit confusing for us to get our hands around it and all that. We will. You have our commitment. And, but I like the ALP part. I really do.
And getting advice and counsel from the Department of Education so that we know we're doing it the right way.
Okay, anything further?
Well, that's all I have, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Now, this is the point where everybody usually gets up and leaves. You don't have to. We welcome you to stay, and we meet again in 2 weeks, so we all expect you to come back. So, but we're gonna continue the meeting. And if you happen to get up and leave, we don't take any questions. We'll talk to you afterwards. If you have to get up and leave, thank you very much for coming, and we look forward to hearing from you and seeing you in the community. But we're gonna continue our meeting. Consent agenda. Minutes, claims, accounts, resignation, retirements. Are there anybody, you have something? You have anybody that, you have anything that you wish to pull? You need to take a few minutes?
No, she just looked at me as I couldn't talk. So if you can continue.
Okay, anybody have anything they want to pull? I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried, and we're gonna take a 5-minute recess. Come on up here, Grace. What do you got? Grace,
Okay, I was like, do I have time?
you want to talk to him?
Either way, doesn't.
Go ahead.
I'd like for everybody to hear it. One thing
We can. Go ahead, what's that?
Is it okay? I've never been to a meeting
Why
like
don't
this.
you
so I
talk to
just
Mr.
don't know.
Norton?
Okay.
He's the best way
If
to.
I talk to Wes and we're not recording, then we're violating
Mr. Norton,
Yes.
Donation and
I
grants.
can read those for you.
you want me to do it or you want to?
I'm not on the right page, I can certainly do it for you. What number is it?
39, I got page 39. But number 3.
Thank you. Donations and grants. I'm gonna combine all of the robotic Tower View robotics together, but the first one we have is a Valentine's Company, Inc. Donated $500 to Red Wing High School SOAR program. And then the following donated to the Tower View Robotics. 3M donated $8,500. Medtronic, $5,000. Ripley's Rental, $100. Spate, Anderson, and Lappengard, $50. StarTech Computing, $200. And again, all of this going to Tower View Robotics. SCS, $50. Palmquist Dental, $50. Pinnacle Wall Systems, $1,000. Musty Barnhart, $250. Health and Home, $500. Andy's Bar and Grill, $150. First Farmers and Merchants, $100. And again, that list was all toward Tower View Robotics. Lombard Love and Ready Legacy Fund donated $4,369.49 to provide books to the Red Wing Elementary Schools. And Red Wing Public Schools Music Endowment Fund donated $1,155.77 to support the music programs. That is our list.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Thank you to everybody that contributed to these fine organizations within our school. It means a lot that some people thought of to take time to donate to these wonderful programs. So with that, I'll entertain a motion. We'll do a roll call vote on this, on the resolution.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Ossendorf. Is there a second? Ms. Bjornsted? Okay, but based upon this resolution, we need to do a roll call vote. Start with Ms. Ossendorf.
Aye.
Ms. Rowe?
Aye.
Ms. Tiff?
Aye.
Ms. Bjornsted?
Aye.
Mr. Bryant, Chair votes aye. Thank you very much. Next is budget reconciliation plan. Did I say that word correctly?
You did. It's a tough word.
Yes. There's another word today I had struggles with, a big word too. So, thank you, good evening.
Good evening again. So at our last meeting, we received the direction to make a plan for the worst case scenario, which was a 3% and 3% state aid increase, which resulted in about a $619,000 general fund deficit. In your packet tonight, you'll see our plan as to how we will meet the $619,000. We have about 4.4 reduction in teaching staff to stay within our class size ratios due to declining enrollment, 1 at the elementary buildings and 3.4 at Red Wing High School. We are proposing to return subs, our permanent sub level to our pre-COVID levels of 1 sub per building instead of the 2 subs per building we have been utilizing these last 2 years. We have some Title IV revenue that we'll use to backfill the loss of the ESSER funds for the tech integration. It won't fill it fully, but it'll help us get a little farther along with covering the tech integrationist position. We have met with our copier company, and we're going to do some things with our copiers to reduce our lease and maintenance agreements for $16,000. That would be something we'd do anyway, but it helps us for next year. And then we'd also reduce instructional supply budgets. So right now, each site receives $70.77 per pupil for instructional supplies. With declining enrollment, that naturally declines, about $6,200.
Okay. Any questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Do you know, or Mr. Norton, do you know how the permanent sub has been utilized? Like, have we needed to have 2 permanent subs at each spot? on an ongoing basis, or?
Depends on the day and depends on leaves. So if there's a maternity leave, sometimes we would utilize that until we can find someone, if the maternity leave comes early. But they actually have been pulled in, unfortunately, to those kinds of situations where it's a longer term. It might be, for 2 or 3 weeks sometimes where we have to place someone in there until we can backfill with somebody permanently, and then we can pull them back out again. So it has been nice to be able to have it, but it certainly isn't when I was in the interim position as the high school principal, where we needed 3 because COVID basically pulled people out constantly. That is no longer the case with illnesses of staff. We're not seeing that.
Good question. So you're reducing from 4 to 2.
We have 8 right now, we're reducing to 4. So we're going from 2 per building K-12 to 1 per building K-12.
And then you talked during the workshop about the ADMs decreasing on the upper levels. Is this gonna be a every month reconciliation then?
I hope not. I hope it might be. News from the legislature is good right now. Will that go to the final, like you said during the workshop? We don't know. We are starting a list administratively of, if this does go through, what would we start adding back, or what would we add instead? Things like mental health supports, I know have been on the list, or teachers at the lower grades to get those class sizes down.
I think when we do negotiation or the workshop, there's a closed session, we should also talk about your email and the insurance part. Make sure we're all on the
same page. Yep.
Correctly. So, all right, we need a motion to approve this as presented.
So
Moved by Ms. Ossendorf. Is there a second? I'll second. Any discussion?
I do have one other question. Were
Yes.
there other things that you looked at that didn't make the list but you considered?
I did not have any others I looked at.
Okay. The reason I ask that is because we have a number of positions open, and in the budget, I'm assuming that they're listed under what they're currently making, but based on education and experience, those numbers could go down, they might go up, but I mean, that could also be helpful, maybe.
Yes, I always budget at where the current staff person is or would have been, as if they'd continued to give us some budget leeway for the next year.
You don't consider the tenured teacher with 30 years of experience is leaving,
Right.
and then we would get somebody in with 1, which is a considerable drop in payment, but we don't consider that.
Yeah. But there is some wiggle room, maybe.
Maybe.
Oh, sure.
Maybe.
And then, so you're talking 4.4 teachers, and that is mostly through attrition, right? Like, we're not.
Some are attrition.
Some of them are being non-renewed, but we would non-renew, basically, non-renew meaning that they're teaching out of placement, so they have to go out and then be brought back in.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Martina, are you on the call yet?
I sure am.
Okay. You're up for cultural training for the school board.
Okay, I'm gonna try to share my screen. I have a plan B with Lisa. Oh, Lisa has it shared. So if you recall a few sessions back, I was charged with vetting a few agencies to bring in some cultural competency training. I vetted 2, one I know fairly well and one that was suggested to me from Melissa Kroll, who's actually our Courageous Leaders cohort facilitator. Lisa, you can go on to the first slide. So the Beyond Diversity, I'm just going to kind of go, I essentially made just kind of overviews. You have kind of the 1-pagers of the proposals. What I wanted to do is give a snapshot of all of these possibilities for each of you and just kind of my recommendation moving forward. I do not believe we're voting on anything tonight. It's more just information for all of you. Anything after I present this information that you guys would like me to look into further, certainly let me know that so we can kind of fine tune what this could look like. So this is just kind of 30,000 foot view of those agencies and specific consultants I was able to speak with. First one is Beyond Diversity Training. Luis Borsalis is actually local to Minnesota, but he does work with the Pacific Education Group, which is Dr. Glenn Singleton's organization. If you're part of the diversity, equity, and inclusion team, I use a lot of Dr. Glenn Singleton's work. So Nikki could speak to the Courageous Conversations piece. Some of you may even be trained in some of the Courageous Conversations protocols. Essentially what Luis could bring in is a 2-day session for us that is going from a 30,000 foot view of what that protocol looks like, digging deeper into our own racial identity and how that actually informs our practice, our decision-making as a board and as a school district. He also looks specifically at systemic racism and how we can actually leverage for equity within the school district, and then just that racial power and privilege. So those are kind of his key components in a 2-day session. Most of the presenters or the consultants that I'm going to give you are going to ask for 2 days. What's really unique to the Beyond Diversity training is that they do have a minimum number. It is 30 participants that they would like. I was able to get them down to 15. I've been working behind the scenes to kind of leverage perhaps other boards that could come in from the surrounding school districts who are willing to come in and do the training. But that $18,000 cost covers the 2 full days of the Beyond Diversity training, and it would give Red Wing School District Board, so all of you, the opportunity to have coaching with him as well. So that cost is very inclusive. If we want to reduce the cost, what I'm going to do is continue to do some outreach to other boards, perhaps Frank can actually talk to the superintendent board meeting. I did reach out to Jess Wickham for all of these as well and talked to her last week about possibly partnering in some capacity, either with local boards or maybe some other agencies who just want to go through the Beyond Diversity training. It is a requisite for him to actually come in to coach us as a board and as a leadership team. So that's just the first overview of Luis. I did talk to him personally. He's very personable. I did like that he was local to Minnesota and he kind of understands leveraging, knows Red Wing fairly well as well, with some intimate relationships that he has. So I thought that was a nice component piece. I do not know him personally though, so I want to kind of put that in the space. He just came highly recommended. The second vetted consultant comes from the Leading for Equity Center. Dr. Sheldon Akins is actually a very good friend of mine. I've worked with him in many different capacities. His background is in education. He was a principal, a director of special ed, and actually worked on a Native American reservation for many years. So he recognizes the Indigenous component that we do bring from Red Wing. His proposal, it is very similar to the Courageous Conversations in that he's actually distilling down to just some more basic components, some entry-level equity work, looking at implicit bias, defining what microaggressions are, really looking at how do we identify our privileges as individuals and then as board members or leaders within the district. So while he spelled it out very differently, they're very similar in their nature. He too asks for 2 full days. He doesn't have to have 2 consecutive days. And I don't even really know if with Luis we have to have 2 consecutive days, but I just know that the first training is baseline in terms of us getting some individual board coaching. What's unique to Dr. Akins is that he would work locally with our school board. So coming into the district, getting to know the district, working with the school board and other leaders as needed. Per the cost as well, if we really wanted to reduce that cost and share it, I can continue to do some outreach and see if there are other agencies or board members who would like to work with us. Timeline for either Luis or Dr. Akins is, really up to us. I think both of them are booked out for the spring. So we would be looking at the summer/fall to do our kind of series of training or a retreat of training. So we can get creative on what that looks like there. And then last but not least, I did want to throw into the space. Yep, you can go on, Lisa, to the next one. Is Stephanie Autumn, who some of you I think had the privilege of doing the restorative circles. I think Tracy, you were there. Nikki kind of came. But what I would really like to consider for the board to consider is to maybe anchor in one of the presenters, either Luis or Dr. Akins, And then really kind of wrap into our equity work as we move forward is really the restorative practices piece that specifically come from an Indigenous lens. Our leadership team, I believe on Martin Luther King Day, worked with Stephanie just to do the very entry level work. I have another meeting with her next week to talk through what is that going to look like as we expand it into our schools with our leaders, our educators, and then creating actual student peacekeepers as well. So she's meeting with me next week on that. She is relatively cost effective compared to the other two, but her information and the practices that we see are just invaluable to all students, and then really how we're responding to our community and our parents, and then our school district as well. So this is one that I would say, regardless of what we decide to do for an equity training, that we could weave in some capacity to make kind of a hybrid approach to being a very courageous board all together. So Lisa, you can go to the next slide. I don't believe that you guys are making decisions today. I just wanted to get some information in your hands and for us to kind of dialogue and discuss. But generally what we would be looking at is determining a baseline training, either working with Courageous Conversations with Luis Versalis or with Dr. Aiken through Leading for Equity. And then we would add in that restorative practices training with Stephanie, who is also local and part of the organization and works very closely with Prairie Island Indian community as well. So questions, comments? I can try to answer as much as I've been able to gather from both of the consultants, and then see where the board is at for next steps.
Do you think you'll have information that you're going to talk to them about within 2 weeks?
In terms of, tell me
You said
more.
you talk to them and figure something out and all that. I'm just saying, do we want to bring it back to the workshop in 2 weeks and discuss it? Bring our calendars and try to find some dates in the late summer, early fall that work.
Sure. Well, it depends on, do you want me to reach out to both of them? So Dr. Akins and Luis, and just say, what is your availability?
Why don't you pick which one you think is best? I would rather do that than us decide. Would you? I think the board wants you to decide what you think is best.
That's really hard because they're both really good. So,
I understand that.
Sure.
But why don't you bring your recommendations, and we'll have to let all the other two board members that aren't here to bring their calendars, because you're right, these people are booked out months in advance, and we bring our calendars and try to find some time that works.
Do any of you, do you have a specific question or anything about either?
Ms. Bjornstedt, maybe.
I was just going to say that I think Stephanie Autumn is also, I attended that training. It was outstanding. And I think it would be really helpful for us as a group to participate in that.
Sure.
And it's invaluable and it's a good value. So.
And I don't think there's a specific order we have to do this in either. So Stephanie may have more availability. So we could start with the restorative practices piece, which I think is a very good responsive way for us to be able to look at different situations and different perspectives with different lenses, and to be responsive in the restoration piece of it. So how do we build back to baseline and then kind of move forward through, challenging topics and issues that we are dealing with nationally, we're dealing with in our own backyard, and we want to be more responsive to our family and our communities. So what I will do is I'll reach out to both of them and get dates and see, what works best for everyone.
Cheryl has a question.
Oh, well, I don't have a question as much as it is a comment. When we look at, I'm all for saving money, and in these kinds of conversations that, the courageous conversations, the hard topics that are coming, if we bring another board in or other folks, that changes the dynamic drastically of the conversation that we may or may not want to have. So I would just, I just wanted to put that out there in the space that will for sure change how it's handled. Maybe. So.
Yep. And that's very accurate. One of the recommendations from Luis was that we would bring in our leadership team, but I actually put in the space exactly what you said, Pam. I said, 1, we probably can't have a quorum. 2, I think it will look and feel very different with my leadership versus my board. I know with Dr. Akins, because I've worked with him firsthand, he could come in and just work with our board. as well as myself or whoever we want to join into that. So, I mean, that's something to think about. The other one does have a minimum, and I was able to get down to 15, but we clearly don't have a board of 15. So I think that would be a consensus the board would have to be comfortable with if we decided we wanted to just keep it local.
Good.
I'm wondering, if you did want to go with, the courageous conversations where we had that minimum, if there would be an option, or I don't know exactly what those 2 days look like, if, there might be an option for the first day to have like more people or something like that, you know, are there components that you, since you know more about the trainings, are there components that you feel like would be comfortable enough, you know, functional for us to have a larger group present for, that other people would still get value from, but then have that more, you know, smaller group setting for continued.
Well, within that cost, remember the baseline for the Beyond Diversity training is the 2 days, and then we will have the ongoing coaching just with our board.
Sure.
But there is value in what Pam is saying. So because we are a united board together, and we will have to have uncomfortable and courageous conversations. Yes, it will change in the community. The other thing to think about, the flip to that, is the multiple perspectives also get us to think differently than more group think. Does that make sense? So just kind of flip that thinking with having others come in. What I can do though, just based on what your feedback is actually reach out to Luis and say, hey, this is what we're thinking. Is this doable? Because I will tell you, any good consultant will work with their clients. So I will bring that back.
Okay.
But certainly as things come up, reach out to me. If you have specific questions, send me some emails or give me a quick call and we can kind of work through that. But I'll, in the next few weeks, get this kind of organized and then maybe come to the next workshop and have a little bit more focus on what next steps could be, other proposals that maybe I could finesse with both of the trainers, and then see where Stephanie's at and get some dates.
Sounds good.
Sound good? Okay.
We have an agenda meeting on Wednesday too.
Yep,
Maybe
we can throw it on that too.
Have something then too. So, anybody else have any other questions for Ms. Wagner? Okay, thank you.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
Next is the tower fiber agreement. Mr. Norton.
So yes, this is the establishment of the lease for the tower site and our fiber that runs throughout the city actually, and to all of our buildings. A map of the actual fiber was included. If you had a chance to be able to read through the lease agreement itself, it's pretty self-explanatory. And then I'd just take any questions if there was anything within the lease that you wanted to be able to talk about. This particular point, but just looking for a motion to approve that.
Do they have any questions?
I thought we already had a lease that was longer. Why, am I not understanding that correctly? Or is this like an update? So this would be, they already have a lease. This is a continuation of that lease, or is it a change? Like, I thought we had a lease that was going beyond where this was.
You want to come up, Kevin? Or
I
not?
don't know. Does that make sense?
That's why he's here.
Like, I thought we had a much longer lease, like 30 years or something. Or is this is,
You have to verify this, but I believe in the past, our lease has been shorter. It's been like 5 or 7 years.
Yeah, I think it's been under 10 and it just auto renews.
Yeah, and what this is updated it to show where the fiber was, what they're letting us use, you know, what it would be, should they ever not need the tower site.
Is this?
Pardon?
This is an existing tower, not a new tower.
It belongs to HBC. It's an existing tower. This belongs to them. It doesn't belong to us.
Right.
Yeah.
That's on our site.
It's sitting on our.
Have they ever paid any rent before?
They did before we started having fiber.
Run to the buildings.
Run to the buildings. It really came up in about 2008 when the Department of Ed started pushing video-based testing. It would have cost us literally, I think I ran the numbers, of $45,000 per building to get enough bandwidth to run that. that's per month, 45,000 per month T1 line. So it was not even a conversation we could have.
Right.
So that's when we really started working with HBC, who works a lot with education, and that's kind of their forte. So that's how they started out anyway.
Yeah, I can remember we had agreement with them to, they're running fiber
Right.
already, and I saw that again, I'm thinking, is this another tower? But,
This all began in about 2008, so we've been working, bringing up the fiber significantly, and with the last 2018 or 19, something like that, they finished the second loop around the city, so we literally, about 90% of our buildings have 2 feeds to them now, so the odds of it going, can it go down? Yeah, it has, because there are 2 major ones in 2 different towns, Minneapolis and Wisconsin, got cut at the same time. What are the odds? So you can never say never, but unless it's on our land and we cut it, we're pretty safe not to have a internet outage.
Now, we were out of Tower View today, and does the fiber go to that school?
We had them run a piece from they own it, we don't, but they ran a piece from Burnside, and then we just did some technology magic on the backside to connect it into our system. So yes, we use a piece of fiber to Tower View right now, yes.
Because they struggled.
That would be part of this contract.
They struggled today with that internet connection there.
They have everything we do here as far as technology.
So it's just for the school part, though, it's probably not for the Anderson Center?
It's not for the Anderson Center, it's just for our 5 rooms and offices and stuff out there.
And that's great that they have the city, all that, but I certainly wish they'd get out in the townships and get some HBC fiber put in on some of the state highways and county roads and out that way, because it doesn't benefit, it benefits the city, but many of our township people don't have.
Outside of the city, it's tough, yeah, and I'm in that boat, so.
So I am too. And I don't want to hold up because of that, but I think high fiber and then fiber around Goodhue is pretty good through whatever it was called. It was Sleepy Eye. Now it's XCOM or something, Telecom. What is it? Newtel. Thank you. I work in the building right across the park.
The good thing about having fiber between the buildings is, for now, right now we've got 10 gig service between us and the middle school, or high school and middle school, because that's our backup data center. All the other buildings are running at 1 gig right now, which is not slouch at all. But the good thing with fiber is we just have to change the ends on each building, and we can go as fast as you want to go. But the problem is ends are not cheap.
I'm a mile away from the tower and can't get HBC.
We're plenty fast right now.
So it's frustrating.
Could you talk about why the lease is such a long amount of time?
I'm worried about the school district, and I'm looking long-term, because if someone else came to buy them, this contract would be in place and they can't change it. But if it ever disappeared, we're losing a $3 million infrastructure. The odds of us getting all of the easements and rights, to go through intersections, stuff, I don't know if we could do that. And another piece that's really important in here was, even if the lease tower goes away, they don't see that in the future at all, but never say never. We are able to lease at a maximum of $1,000 a month. So we would get, right now, if we were leasing the fiber we have, it'd be somewhere $35,000 a month. And the contract here, they can't charge us more than $1,000 a month in perpetuity. There's no increase, there's no 2%. I mean, that's what it is forever. So that part's a really sweetheart deal. I'm cheap. I'm looking out for the district. I want to make sure long-term that we don't get behind the 8 ball somewhere.
What if there are things that, and I'm sorry, it might be written in here, but I just am not that good at reading through leases. What happens if we need more technology than what is currently there, in 20 years? What
I can't.
are our projections?
I cannot imagine what technology is going to come along that fiber wouldn't handle, because that's what they're putting in everywhere. And we have 2 strands each building now. They've been very good to us about that. They said if you needed 4, we would have done it, but we were through the build out. We had to work with them, give and take, because we had to do it as they built it out. There's times we were running on 1 strand between a couple of buildings. And we were making it work just fine. I mean, fiber is incredible how fast it can be. So it's really the equipment on both ends that's gonna limit whether fiber can handle it or not. But even if it couldn't, they would allow us 2 more strands if we really needed it.
Okay.
But I don't ever see us needing that.
Up to 4.
The what?
4.
And we have
And it's,
And another piece that, I don't know if you know it or not, but we do have 4 strands between the high school and Southeast Tech. So if we put those in a long time ago, because at one point we shared State's internet with them, or do you want to know? But we wanted those left in place because if we ever want to do collaborative work between the schools, we have that dark fiber between those 2 buildings right now.
and 2 questions. We're covered if they sell, HBC sells to somebody, doesn't change the lease at all.
As far as I know, they cannot change it, correct? They would have to assume the lease as long as it's 30
You
years.
have to assume it or renegotiate.
It's kind of like the solar gardens. They've been sold several times and they have to keep taking it on.
Does this need, or has it, or does it need to go before an attorney?
It already has.
We did that.
Yep, this has all been approved by the attorneys at both HBC and the school district.
I know we had an email on it. Thank you for clarifying some of that. So. What's the board's wishes?
I will make a motion to approve the tower site lease agreement as presented.
Motion by Ms. Tiff, is there a second?
I will.
Second by Mr. Armstead, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried, thank you.
Yep, thank you all.
Upcoming meetings. We have an agenda meeting on Wednesday at 9.
Yep.
Next school board meeting is April 17th, a workshop at 5. We're gonna start looking at some policy reviews at some point here. And then we're gonna talk whatever else. And, regular meetings on the 17th at 6 o'clock. We'll go into a closed session for negotiations. Is that tentatively on here? We'll talk more about it on Wednesday?
We'll talk about it on Wednesday at the
Okay.
agenda meeting, yes.
Do we need to have a negotiations committee meeting before that, or? Okay.
No one's approached. I think that we're doing something good.
Okay.
Okay.
Always good to, okay. Anybody have anything else? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Rowe, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Bjornstead. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We're adjourned.
Knuckle rapping.
I
like it.
I couldn't reach.
Good work.